It is an honor to be here before you today. And I'm grateful for all the black people who came before me and started a conversation about the anxiety, the depression, and the PTSD that we face in the black community. See, when you look inside the black community, we're fighting against racial injustice, poverty, and community violence. Community violence is rarely spoken about, but yet it's a major issue within our community. Community violence is like a disease. It affects all racial and ethnic groups. It impacts those living in rural and urban neighborhoods. However, research supports, according to the Clinical Child and Family Psychology Review, black males living in inner cities are at a greater risk of being exposed to and victims of community violence in comparison to white urban males. Furthermore, this chart is from the American Journal of Preventative Medicine. Now, a study that was conducted in 2018. Now, the purpose of the study was to analyze the racial disparities of violence experienced between black and white youth/young adults. Take a look at the homicide rate. This chart indicates between the ages 10 to 17 years old, the black male to white male homicide rate is 17.9% higher. Between the ages 18 to 34 years old, the black male to white male homicide rate is 17.7% higher. Jumping down, the percent injured in a physical fight, the black male to white male ratio rate is 2.1% higher, and second to the bottom, the percent that miss school due to safety concerns, the black male to white male ratio rate is 2.4% higher. See, it's evident that community violence not only affects our young adults, but it disproportionately affects our young black boys. Community violence has been linked to classroom disengagement. Community violence has been linked to academic failure. Community violence has been linked to high levels of distress. And these adolescents living in these inner cities have been chronically exposed to these violent events. Exposure to community violence is public shootings, gang fights, stabbings, homicide, robbery, murder, narcotic sales, and many more. And when an individual is repeatedly exposed to these violent events, it begins to take a toll on their mental health. Exposure to community violence is strongly associated with antisocial behavior, risky behavior, aggression, internalizing and externalizing problems, sleep problems, suicide ideation, substance abuse, PTSD, and depression. I, like my peers growing up in Brooklyn, New York, was exposed to large amounts of community violence. I remember one day after school, ninth period ends, the last bell just rang, I run down the 3 flights of stairs, exit through the exit door, making my way to the deli to go buy my favorite 25-cent bag of chips, my Arizona, and some grandma cookies. It's a beautiful day, and as I reach to the deli, I'm witnessing one of my classmates getting pressed. Now, getting pressed is what we call when an individual robs you for your possessions. It looks something like this. An individual will approach you, and they'll say, "Yo, what time is it?" You take out your phone to tell them the time, run that. They take your phone. Now, depending on the situation, they might now tell you run your pockets and tell you and take anything else you got. See, right now I'm telling you what was going on in junior high school. However, I could tell you another story how those similar words, run your pockets, were sold to 2 of my brothers on 2 completely different occasions, both at gunpoint. There's only a few ways out of a situation like this, and you hope you don't get shot. It was as if every day there was a traumatizing event that occurred. So what did I do? Junior high school, 7th grade, was when I first started carrying 2 knives to school in order to protect myself. I didn't witness too many individuals get jumped and others get pressed. So I had to make sure I wasn't going to be next. I had daydreams and nightmares of getting my sneakers robbed or my iPod stolen, my beats snatched off my head. even sometimes getting shot by a stray bullet. Now, I didn't know at the time, but I was actually displaying symptoms of PTSD, anxiety, and hypervigilance. Too many individuals I knew were either shot or shot at, stabbed, jumped, others were just plainly robbed. And the behavior I adopted as an adolescent was internalization. I internalized all of it. Why? Community violence was not a conversation in my home, nor was it discussed in school. So I thought living amongst this was normal. This is regular. Too many of us are living amongst these conditions and believe this is normal, and are totally unaware of how it's impacting your relationships, affecting your behavior, and damaging your mental health. Individuals who have been exposed to violence, like losing a loved one to homicide, have been linked to anxiety, depression, and PTSD. And according to the FBI, in 2019, African American males, let's zoom in on it, accounted for approximately 53.7% of all homicide victims in 2019 in the United States of America. Without a shadow of a doubt, the acts of community violence are damaging our communities physically, emotionally, and mentally, and that's why I believe that the first step to healing is going to be breaking the stigma of mental health. See, it's all about how we perceive a mental health condition. Think of a mental health condition as like a physical injury. So like if you was to injure your ankle on the field or court, it affects your walking, running, physical abilities. A mental health condition like PTSD affects your eating, sleeping, thinking, decision-making, physical abilities. But notice how we don't categorize people who got injured on the field or court as weak. In fact, we say it happens. It's a part of the game. And that's practically the same thing with this life. A mental health condition, it happens. It's a part of life. If you was to injure your ankle on the field or court, you would go to receive the help. We normalize physical therapy. Now let's normalize mental therapy. Hence the reason why today we have artists like Jay-Z doing interviews and rapping about the importance of a therapist. Or how about Meek Mill tweeting in 2019, we got to find a way to make therapy cool for the black community. Or how about as of recent, Herbert Wright, also known as G Herbo. Not only did he make a song called Feelings, in the video he is simulating a therapy session where he's talking to his therapist, talking about his feelings and processing his PTSD. See, a negative stigma that's been attached to a therapist as if it's only for crazy people or people with problems. Others see it as a sign of weakness. I couldn't be any farther from the truth. There's great power and value in seeking that mental help and in seeking that therapy as a preventative factor or as a recovery method. Now, before I vacate the premises, it's my last point. Recently, I was developing a group curriculum for adolescents who were exposed to community violence. Now, while I was developing this curriculum, this is when I came across many preventative factors. As I just said, it was many preventative factors that I could talk about. However, it is a TED Talk, and I'm on a time limit, so I'm only going to highlight 3. The first one was neighborhood support. Now, neighborhood support is critically important, and here's why. Research suggests that when the members of a community begin to support each other, in turn, what will develop is something that we call resilience. A resilient community. Big factor. And that's because of the characteristics and attributes that are associated with resilience. And that's the following. Number 1, emotional well-being. Number 2 is the inner drive, like confidence and determination. Number 3, future focus, goal setting and focusing on your future. Number 4 was physical health, And number 5 was relationships, the ability to care for others. In a resilient community, the maladaptive behaviors like internalization or externalization or aggression begin to decrease. And it gives the opportunity for our adolescents to develop positive behaviors like goal setting, focusing on their future, and developing a growth mindset. Number 2 was positive peers. Now, I'm not going to hang too long on this one. However, positive peers reminded me of let your light shine so bright amongst men. It's as if I owe my peer positivity. As if I have a duty to share positivity with my friend. This, in turn, will break the cycle. We will start to see positive peer pressure. And positive peer pressure can disrupt that negative vibration that keeps the cycle of community violence going by a peer bringing out that positive inner light within him to influence his friends to do something better. Now, the third preventative factor was very important for me, and that was a strong parent-child relationship. See, growing up, I didn't have all the flyest clothes. I didn't have all the flyest sneakers. I didn't have all the name brand clothes. I had some though, but not all. Right? In fact, in junior high school, I went to a uniform school. I rotated the same 2 white collared shirts and the same 2 khaki pants for the entire school year. Why? We didn't really have much growing up. And it wasn't always like that. My mom was an administrative assistant at the World Trade Center, right? She was making over $60,000 a year, doing well. But as we all know, September 11, 2001, planes were hijacked. Tower 1 was hit between the 93rd and 99th floor. My mom worked in Tower 1 on the 89th floor. Now it's mayhem, it's chaotic, it's the worst day of the year. And in the midst of all of that, my mom just lost her job. See, my mom has 7 children. How's she going to provide for us now? Where's she going to work? My mom didn't have a college degree. And at that time, it was very difficult for an uneducated immigrant black woman in her mid-40s to get hired. We went from making over $60,000 a year to a little under $20K. Financially, we were broke. But by the grace of God, we were blessed. Despite our conditions, I was blessed enough to have a mother who sent me to school with well-cleaned iron clothes. I was blessed enough to have a mother who made breakfast for us each morning before school. I was blessed enough to have a mother who cooked dinner for us each night. And I was blessed enough to have a mother who supported me throughout all my endeavors. Now, I didn't realize this growing up, but the basic needs that my mom provided for us turned out to be the most important thing for the mental development of not only me, but my siblings as well. You see, my mom worked often too. So we didn't always have the opportunity to talk about what was going on in the community and how it's affecting our mental health, right? And I didn't even know it was mental health at the time. But even though she worked often, and we weren't able to have those conversations, me witnessing my mother endure through chronic adversity and work so hard to provide the basic needs decreased the chances of me getting involved in risky behavior. And it increased the chances of me focusing on my future to break the cycle. Now, the 3 things I just mentioned, positive peers, neighborhood support, and a strong parent-child relationship, I want to emphasize this. I want to emphasize the power of a support system. Never underestimate the power of a support system. A multi-leg or a single-leg support system can be the difference maker from a boy pulling the trigger to him not even picking up the gun. It could be a difference maker from a boy skipping school persistently to him attending and graduating college. And as I currently work with the youth right now, I notice how healthy it is when a youth member has a positive support system intact, complemented with an understanding of his self-worth. And I'm going to demonstrate that by this. Fresh out the bank, $100 bill, no strings attached. Who would want it? By a show of hands. I would expect so, right? Okay. Any takers still? No strings attached? Who would want this $100 bill? No strings attached. Any takers? Anybody still wants it? I see some hands went down. Okay. Some people still want it. Now, there's no food in this garbage, just some papers, but anybody still wants that same $100 bill? No strings attached. Let's see. $100 to take a student a long way. Even though this $100 bill was just crumpled up, thrown on the floor, and thrown in the garbage, you were still able to see the value of this $100 bill. Despite the conditions that this $100 bill just went through, the value of it never changed. And in fact, you're worth more than $100. Your value is beyond measure. The pressure of feeling like you have to acquiesce to what's going on in the community, no more. You can break the cycle. See, everybody else is doing it. You can break the cycle. The external factors did not determine the value nor the outcome of this $100 bill. Just like how the external factors of community violence does not determine the person or the outcome or the person that you have to be. You can break the cycle and be the positive peer. You can break the cycle and be the supportive neighbor. You can break the cycle and develop a strong parent-child relationship. You can break the cycle and take care of your mental health. And together, we can all break the cycle of community violence. I want to thank you guys all for your time. TEDxBinghamton University, you guys are wonderful. A standing ovation. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much.